Let me summarize some of the things that we've said that might help us to understand just a little more deeply Therese's little way, the little way of love without violence. We spoke of, Therese speaks of the little way in two different images. One is as a path. And in that image, when we're walking the path of love without violence, the important thing seems to be to understand when we step off of the path, because our natural God-given existence is to love. And we are most at peace and we are most at ourselves when we are in a relationship of love, and we understand that. So if we can understand when we step off the path of love, then we will know that when we're not off the path of love, we are living a loving life, even though it doesn't feel like it. It will feel non-adversarial to life. That will give us the clue that we are living in love without violence. But in particular, Therese saw 6 guideposts that told her that she was stepping off the path of love. And the first we identified was inner freedom. When she was no longer free, when she was pushed around by her feelings and didn't have that inner freedom, she knew that that would eventually lead to violence. And it did. It did in her life. It led to violence to herself when she began to experience that, being pushed around by her feelings, and it would lead to violence to other people in the convent later. The second quality was empathy. She learned that if she was not empathetic with people, she would begin taking their comments and their harshness and their disrespect, she would begin to take that personally, and then she would naturally, as she said, her natural feelings were to retaliate, but she knew that she couldn't be pushed around by those feelings or dominated by those natural feelings, that she had to rise above them. And in one place at the end of her autobiography, she said, "What great peace a soul experiences when it rises above natural feelings." And then the third quality was creativity, that she had to deal with people on their terms and be adaptable, and she couldn't just say as to herself, as we sometimes hear people say, "Well, this is just me, I can't do anything else, you get what you see." No, she knew she wasn't finished, that she could love more flexibly than she even believed. She could love and accept the necessary suffering in her life to be a loving person, even beyond what she first thought she could. And then the fourth quality is willingness. She was not about to bully herself, and she was not about to bully other people, which she knew would be violent. And if she stepped off that sense of willingness into a willful spirit, she knew she was not on the path of love. And the fifth quality was self-surrender, that surrender into who she was, accepting herself in peace and in love, in authentic love, willing to identify her weakness and willing to identify her gifts, so to be honest with herself and not to try to bully herself, but surrender into the reality of who she was and surrender into the reality of her life as it has unfolded. And the sixth quality was gratitude, the spirit that permeated her whole life, finally becoming not just a specific quality, as it were, but like a whole spirit, like a whole attitude, a whole focus of her life was to be grateful. And then we spoke of the little way. Also, at the end of her life, Therese saw that the little way could be pictured as abandonment into God's providence, falling into the arms of God, like getting on an elevator, not striving on a ladder of perfection, but being risen to to the height that God wanted us in an elevator. And the elevator in the spiritual life, Therese discovered, was God's arms. So it's not going anywhere in that sense. The little way is not a path in that sense. Then we can see it more as a process. And the elements of that process, and together with those qualities of the little way, the qualities, the heart qualities, the psychological qualities that we just mentioned, those 6, we can see it as a process of patience with ourselves, of prudence, putting up boundaries that help us to love people without disrespecting our own weaknesses and disrespecting our own gifts, but to be prudent. Not prudence in the sense of being cautious, but prudence in the sense of being realistic and responding creatively and compassionately. And the third process element would be prayer. We can't do any of this without having a relationship with God, a loving intimacy with God to the best we can. Now you realize Therese's own prayer was not always filled with feelings of fervor, but she knew that that was not necessary, that what was necessary was the willingness to allow God to love her. And then the perseverance in this whole process, doing it over and over again, because we're going to fail. We're going to fail. And we just come back to doing the best we can. And that becomes then the way of Therese, that little way. I think Therese, in discovering this little way, is a great gift to the Church. And as the Pope said when he made her a doctor of the Church, she helps to heal the Church of the rigors of Jansenism, which are the rigors of violence, thinking that God is violent to us and that therefore we should be violent either to ourselves or other people as we address perceived wrongs and evil. We don't solve that problem. We don't grow spiritually through violence. We grow spiritually through love, through accepting God's love, through appreciating our own lives, and through delighting in all the gifts that God has given us. Therese is a real gift to the Church, and that is what we begin to understand as we begin to deepen our awareness of the little way.